Wages were kept down. Trade unions couldn't operate. In thousands of noisy, ill-ventilated sweatshops, Korean workers toil long hours making shoes, textiles, or wigs for export. At the age of 18, Yi Chong-kak went to work in a textile mill in Incheon.
The first day I got there, the moment I saw the conditions, I thought, this is hell. That's the first impression I had. There were huge machines, as big as houses, and there were a lot of them. There was so much noise, you couldn't hear anything. We pulled thread out of cotton, which created so much dust we couldn't see each other. I thought, this is hell. And I felt really bottled up inside.
When they tried to start their own union, the women were harassed by their managers who paid men to wait for them, armed with buckets from the latrines.
The men brought in buckets full of excrement and said, let's see if you're going to vote, you women. And so you can see, they have thrown it everywhere here. The workers would come into the office to vote, and they said, why don't you try some shit?
The union collapsed, the women were fired, and their leaders beaten up or tortured by police. Park's political opponents were imprisoned. Some were killed. Park was hated by his opponents, and there were several attempts on his life.
다시 한번 강조하면서 우리가 그동안 시정
In 1974, an assassin mortally wounded his wife.
하던 얘기를 계속하겠습니다.
Showing his legendary self-discipline, he continued. But 4 years later, Park himself was killed by his own security chief. Though another general took over the country, he found it impossible to maintain the same dictatorial grip which had delivered the economic miracle. Industrial workers mounted strikes, demanding huge pay raises. Students fought with police. The continuing violation of human rights brought condemnation of the South Korean government from abroad. And in 1987, after 26 years of military rule, free elections were held. South Korean workers finally got a greater share of the nation's new wealth in their own pockets. Wages began to catch up with European levels. Real earnings doubled over 10 years. 99% of households had television.
박진감 넘치는 현장 화면. Excellent.
그러면 뜨거운 물도 쓸 수 있어. 엉키지 않아요.
Over 50% now had washing machines. Kim Bok-soon, who once scavenged for food, now had her own refrigerator.
I was fascinated by my fridge. I looked to see if the water was cool. I would open the door and keep drinking the water. Finally, my stomach bloated and I got a stomachache. I had to go to the lavatory all the time. But I would go to the fridge again and drink even more water. And I cried because I was happy that I too could buy a fridge.
In barely 30 years, South Korea had gone from being one of the poorest countries in the world to having the 12th largest economy. an amazing feat for a country of its size. Now South Koreans were not only exporting cars, but buying them themselves. Among the proud new owners was Jang Chang-sun, the Olympic wrestler who had marveled at Tokyo in 1964.
I never thought that I could have a car or a house. But I bought a house and a car on the same day. I was so happy. After I brought the car home, I bowed to the car in an ancestral ritual. And then I took my family for a ride. We stayed up all night celebrating.
In 1988, it was the South Koreans' turn to host the Olympic Games. Now they had a chance to show the world their new prosperity. The South Koreans knew the high price that had been paid for their success. But in the Olympic glow, their own achievements still amazed them.
It was a 180-degree change from one extreme to another. I don't think there's another country in the world that has gone through such an extraordinary development in such a short time. I think we've accomplished a great deal.
But there was no monopoly on miracles. In the years since Japan had shown the way, others had started to experience the same explosive growth and rapid social change. They were called the tiger economies. Asians themselves began to boast of Asian values. They claimed their growing success was due to discipline and hard work, the traditional schools, and strong authoritarian control. They look forward to the 21st century as a time of continued growth and unprecedented prestige in the world.